Okay. Hi, everyone. Uh, Greetings to all of you from the Finance and Economy Club of IIT Guwahati. I am Priya, your host for the day, and this is the first webinar regarding the FinFest. That is a collaborative idea that we have come up. The IITs, the Finance, Economic, and Business Clubs of IIT Guwahati, Bombay, Delhi, Roorkee, and Varanasi are very, very happy and pleased to bring up this very beautiful opportunity to all of you, where this will be a event that will be focused on the finance and economics for the engineering schools in India, so that the top institutions of India, the engineering students get an opportunity to explore what exactly finance is and also explore their career prospects into it with professional speakers and a lot of workshops. So we have a lot of workshops, webinars, and competitions planned, which will obviously engage the quality audience from India's top institutions, as mentioned. And we ensure that it will be a very enriching and beautiful experience for all of you, and you'll gain a lot of professional skills. So here are we with our first webinar, which is Equity Market Trends. And for that, we extend a very, very warm welcome to our speaker, Mr. Vaibhav Jain, uh, who is a CFA chart holder, and he is currently also a volunteer with the CFA Society of India. He is a very, very known professional. He has completed his MBA from IIM Indore, and before that, he started as a data analyst at the Smart Cube. And after that, he followed it with investment banking role at Deutsche Bank after his MBA, and also he moved to a private wealth management role at India's one of the fastest growing organizations, Railways. It has been, sir, it is a very, very we are very, very pleased to have you with us to engage with our audience today, and we'll try to make the session as interactive as possible. So moving on to Mr. Vaibhav Jain.
Thanks, Priya, and thanks, Team FinFest, to invite me for the wonderful opportunity. And great to know that people from students from IIT, being engineers, are showing some interest into the financial services segment. And it's actually bring me nostalgia, because I myself I'm a computer engineer, not from IIT, but from a college in Noida. And I know that how my journey from being a computer science engineer to where I am today has been. I just wanted to check with you, the team. I can see only 5 attendees over here, so I think we are good, right? Probably I might not be seeing the right list. We have enough attendees, or we need to wait for it. So Priya, if you can just let me know if we are good to go, or we need to wait for some time.
Sir, we could just wait for 2 minutes so that at least the some people who are interested in joining might join.
Okay, so I'll wait for 2 minutes and then we'll start at 2:07. So guys, I think we should start now. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome whosoever have joined us today. So as I said, it's a pleasure to address you guys over here, and it just takes me back to my old engineering days, where I used to although code, but I realized later on that coding is not what I want to do for my life. So, and I was gaining some traction to the financial markets. 2008 crisis, when global financial crisis happened, I was in my third year of my engineering, and without even knowing what investment banker does, I just thought I want to become an investment banker. So the coding and the engineering all went out of the window, and I started focusing on finance and stock market. Obviously, everybody starts with the stock markets and see how the things are actually tying up. But stock market is nothing but the end culmination of whatever in theory you read about finance. Everything and anything and everything what you read in finance has to culminate in the practical world, which is the stock markets. So I won't get into that all those details, but the thing is that now I realize that okay, coding is something which is anyways it has come into the financial world, right? Today everybody wants to make Python codes and machine learning and artificial intelligence. Where I think you guys who are computer science engineers or who know coding, who are doing this day in and day out, it's very easy for you guys. And finance is not rocket science. It's one of the most I would say it's one of the simplest fields, simplest subjects. Because ultimately, what is happening is that everybody is using some tools and techniques and trying to predict the future, and nobody can predict the future, right? So everybody takes a shot using the best ammunition he or she has, and then if he is correct consistently, he is considered to be an expert, to be a god in finance. Otherwise, obviously, 2 3 consecutive wrong predictions you make, you are out of the industry. So I don't. So sometimes, when many times I have seen that many of my friends who are not, or relatives who are not from the field of finance, kind of gives a gut call. Okay, tomorrow the market is going to go up. Tomorrow the market is going to go down, and market actually follows that trajectory. And eventually, people think that, oh, this guy or this girl is always giving correct calls. So is he a finance expert? Is he a stock market expert? I don't know, but he is making money from the stock markets. That is I think more important, but obviously it's not consistent. So you need to know the basics as well. So moving ahead, so today's topic, I already just to let you guys know that I generally speak either in the corporates or the B schools. The only engagement before today with a grad college had been with IIT Guwahati again, with a bunch of volunteers had requested me to speak to students regarding the job opportunities, career opportunities after IIT into financial world. And it was a pleasure speaking there, I think 5 6 months back. And the team again reached out to me for to request to speak to you guys, and anytime for IITians, because this is something which I always crave to reach this institute, but I could never. So I have high respect for all the IITians out there who are listening to me today. Well, to start with, guys, honestly, the topic which these guys gave me was equity market trends, and more specifically the budget expectation. Budget. First of all, I mean, this is a very good day to speak. This is one day prior to the budget, and during these days, everybody is just discussing what to expect from the budget tomorrow, what would be the impact on the stock markets, this and that, blah blah, a lot of data points. But I have been following budget for like about 8 to 10 years now. It hardly matters. I will give you my expectations. Okay, taxation this, MSME that, government can give some extra benefits to certain kind of industries, and then tomorrow we'll see whether my expectations matches what the finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman says. This is a work of research analysts and economists who will predict what to expect from the market, and accordingly the stock markets react. But I don't see much sense in front of the audience I have today to speak about the expectations, my expectations from the budget. If you want to read the expectations, there's several articles today available on Economic Times, Money Control, Bloomberg Point, blah blah. You can read anybody's and everybody's expectations. Now, what will happen tomorrow is more important, right? But is it important in the long run? Budget days have been very volatile for the stock markets. As the finance minister reads the line, you can see the market going up, going down, going up, going down. So it gives you an immediate response as to this line was taken positively by the stock market or not. Fundamentals generally do not work in large, but what generally happens is that when the finance minister reads out certain sections which are catering to a particular industry, for example, I'll take an example. Let's say that for the government's focus in the last few years has been on the water management, right? Water management, waste management. So let's take an example of water management. If the government comes up with something, the finance minister comes up with something which benefits the water treatment companies. There are I think 2 or 3 companies which are into the listed space in water management, and they will gain, right? They will gain in the anticipation that okay, government will try to give them some favorable policies and all, so they might gain in the stock price, but the other companies are not impacted. Similarly, let's say the next day reads for the auto companies, and the auto companies will start reacting to it, and the other companies will stay like that. If you talk about the Nifty 50 index, which you might be aware about, is comprised of the top 50 companies. There is no water management company in there. There are few handful of auto companies like Maruti, Tata Motors, Hero MotoCorp. Probably they might react a bit. And because if the company is in Nifty top 50, which is getting impacted by any kind of policy change or a regulate, whatever the announcement will be made, Nifty will accordingly react. But it will keep going up and down. This is not a long-term investment that you can just do at 11 a.m. and think that okay, I will be invested for 3 years, 5 years. I would generally advise people to stay put tomorrow and just look at how the market has been reacting. A lot of times I've observed is that after the speech is over, let's say after 1.5 hours, 2 hours, the market takes a different direction altogether. I think this happened last year in 2019. Don't remember exactly, but generally the thing is that the immediate reaction may not always be the right reaction, right? Probably later on when the finer prints are available on the website of RBI, and then the analysts will go through, the institutional investors will go through actually what the finance minister would have meant by when she spoke about this line. Then people might think a little bit differently, that okay, we thought that it is a positive news, but okay, there is this caveat, so I don't think so this is a positive news. So tomorrow's day, generally it's very volatile, but over the last 1 week, what we have seen, in fact, let's start with over the last 9 months, what we have seen in the stock markets after the March 2020 crash is that the market went from what, and when I say market, I generally mean Nifty. I do not see Sensex. As young guys, I would suggest you guys also to speak more in the language of Nifty or NSE rather than BSE or Sensex. The reason being, the futures and options, which is the derivative market, is available on Nifty or on NSE, not available on BSE. So the maximum volumes also volumes come to NSE. So NSE is about more than 90% of the volume. BSE is 10%. There are oldies who would say Sensex because one, it looks a larger number. 48,000 or 50,000 will always sound better than a 12,000 or a 14,000. And secondly, that Sensex came first. So there were a lot of oldies in the market who always tracked Sensex. So they never came to the speaking Nifty or NSE language. But okay, so on that note, so what I'm expecting, what I was saying is, I just a second. Okay, so from in March you saw that Nifty fell from about 12,500 to 7,500, and from April onwards it has been just a one-way trajectory, and people are so confused what has happened in the underlying economy when COVID has not retreated, people are still dying. But what has happened, that market has risen from 7,500 to today what it went to 14,700, which is almost 100% gains in the span of less than 9 months. But then in the last week we have seen Nifty correcting by about 4 to 5%, and today it's at 13,600. Now, what has happened differently to this year in comparison to the last year is that before the budget only the Nifty has fallen 5-6%. So there are a lot of people saying that okay, probably what the expectations from the budget are anyways low. So stock market is nothing but a game of expectations. So anything which comes, as a little bit of positive news will take the market up. But then there are technical analysts who will see the chart and see that okay, the support level I'll not go in much detail into what charts and all are, but there is a support, there is a resistance. Basically, the support is the point where the Nifty is expected to take a little halt and probably rise again upwards. But if the support gets broken, then probably there is more downside in the market. So there are few people, few technical analysts who have said that okay, the support has been broken. Probably Nifty can go to different levels, to the lower levels. Generally, as a I am a long-term investor, so I don't believe in all these daily movements until and unless you are a trader, you are an intraday trader who needs to capture those small falls and small rises and make money out of it on a daily basis. The volatility of budget day should not impact you more. There are few points which are key to look into the budget. Basically, is what are the government's expectations on the fiscal deficit, on the GDP growth rate, but more or less, more often actually, the estimates are always wrong, right? So you give a fiscal deficit as okay, this year we'll target 3.5%. This is a COVID year, so obviously you are expecting a large fiscal deficit. Irrespective, even in the normal years, 3.5 might go to 4.5 or 4.2, and then they'll say, okay, we are not much, worse than what we had predicted. Similarly for GDP growth rate. Now these things keep on changing with time. Probably on February 1st, which is tomorrow, you will hear some different number, and by the time May comes, June comes, then obviously the story might change a lot. I was hearing our honorable Prime Minister yesterday, Modi ji, and he was saying that, and he rightly said, I was really happy to hear that. He said that, okay, tomorrow is the big day, tomorrow is the budget day. But honestly, over the last 9-10 months, because if you guys are following, the finance minister always used to come and gave out certain benefits to certain industries, that she will be announcing liquidity measures like, okay, we are announcing a 10,000 crore induction into certain kind of industry. So what Mr. Modi said is that this budget is just probably a continuation of all these previous finance ministers meet, right? When she came and she was announcing so many different policies and different benefits for the industries, which is true, right? Otherwise, it used to be once in a year a grand event, but this time we have seen every 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, the government used to come and come out with certain kind of. So it's not that kind of a kind of a budget which you probably hear all the different years. So I don't want to speak much on the expectations tomorrow. I have kind of a list which I share with my clients as to what my expectations are, who are interested into the budget and the markets and all, but doesn't make sense for you guys, honestly. About the equity market trends, I have already spoken about how the market has been for over the last 9-10 months. And before proceeding, guys, so this is what I just want to cover in my monologue. Probably I'll speak for about 4-5 minutes on the equity market trends. I'll give some background about myself as to how from engineering I have reached as a wealth manager at Edelweiss, because I know that most of the people who are eyeing a career into finance would want to know that what different trajectories people might follow, and you can take the same. So 5 minutes I'll speak about my journey, and then I want to open the forum for Q&A, because I just want to make it very interactive. Any sort of questions related to finance, related to career, you can just throw on me, and 90% I'll definitely try to answer all of them. Within the time frame, but there might be some 10% questions which I might have no idea about. I am not a Wikipedia, so I will humbly politely say that okay, I have no idea about this, and let's move ahead. So by the time I finish in the next 5-7 minutes, I would request you to think about questions, and probably Priya or other team members might give you an idea as to how to ask questions, whether to write on the chat or use the voice to us. So Priya, if you want to announce how you want these guys to ask questions, then you can announce it. Then I'll continue.
Sir, actually, the session is being streamed on YouTube, as you know. So attendees are on that platform. So we will take the questions, filter them out, and all the questions we wish you to answer, I'll read it out for you, or we'll mention in the chat.
Great. Thanks a lot. So yeah, if you can just read out the questions to me, I'll be definitely very happy to answer, because I'm not on YouTube. I'm not looking there. So it's okay. Okay. So guys, For the equity market trends, as I was saying that okay, the last year has been phenomenal since April. Those who invested in April, the best time to invest in actually was 24th March at 7511 when Nifty was at that level. But who had that guts to actually get into market when in the last 3 to 4 weeks you just saw a 40% decline, right? Because emotions work a lot in the equity markets. Leave aside from 12,500 to 7,500. There are so many people I have heard in the last week who have started panicking when the market has fallen from 14,700 to 13,600. So a 900 point fall after such a stupendous rise can panic people. You can imagine that nobody had the guts, including me, had the guts to get into the market on March 24th at the bottom, because after 7,500 there was speculative calls that the market might go to 6,000, 4,500, and there were some people I heard that they were like stock market hi band ho jayega. So all these kind of weird things you keep hearing when when things are not going in your way. But then from the first week of April, I have been advocating people to get back into the markets when the market actually went to 8,500. Because obviously that support which I talked about, right? So you need to give give markets a little bit of room in order to kind of get confirmation that okay, now probably the trend will not reverse back and now we are looking at upward movement. But I would be very honest with you guys, I never expected market to go to these levels. My best call was that by Diwali, the market might go back to 11,500 or max 12,000. Then I was expecting that the US elections will actually have a great impact. If Donald Trump came, the market would go up. If Biden came, the market would go down. And I was expecting Trump to come back. Trump did not come back. Biden came back, but the market went up. So my call on the market went right. My call on the who will come went wrong. So basically, this is how it happens, right? You can expect something, you can expect, and then things won't work accordingly. But at the end of the day, the result was in my favor. So that was a mistake. I generally admit it. But 99% people made this mistake, so it's okay. Right? When 99% of the people are making mistake, it's called the herd mentality, and stock market actually works on herd mentality. People are very few who will take a contrarian call, and those people have guts. I truly admire them. Now, what has happened is that okay, by the end of the year, market breached 14,000. I think it was reaching 15,000 almost when it turned back. And many people ask me that okay, as I was saying, that economy is not doing well. Why are the stock markets doing well? Retrospect, you can make many theories, and I can also make a couple of them to give you the reasons. But if you ask me that Weber, what are you expecting in the next 1 month? I might give some expectations, but that might not be true, right? So the reason the markets have gone up is simply that the Fed has inducted a lot of liquidity. Every day it has been printing money and distributing to industries, to general public in some form or the other. And because there is so much of cash available, and there are the interest rates on the bonds, on the fixed income securities are down to almost 0%. So where are people going to invest, right? The equity markets are the only way out. Otherwise, you can see Bitcoin is rising. You can see stocks like what has happened in the last week, the stock of GameStop, and these kind of stocks are also rising. People have a lot of time. People have a lot of these kind of different asset classes, and they'll just keep jacking up the prices, right? But that doesn't mean that fundamentally it's correct. It has to correct one day or the other. The only issue is when is it going to correct? Someone might think that okay, 12,500 is the point where it will start correcting and would have sold everything, would only be regretting that okay, I sold early. Someone who exited at 14,500 thinking okay, now I think it's time to exit, would be very happy in the last week, right? Oh, I exited at almost the peak. Nobody can catch the peak, nobody can catch the bottom. That is the ultimate truth, just like the sunrise in the east, kind of. But if you have consistently got the high or the low, don't be very happy with yourself. It's just the luck, nothing else. And it's not always that luck will be with you. So just understand one expectation from the stock market, that you can never catch a high or a low. So you should be okay with exiting at a little lesser than the high and entering a little higher than the extreme lows. That is why I said when market went to 7,500 to 8,500, I entered and I'm quite happy. I've still not exited. There are different strategies which I apply for my own portfolio, how to enter, how to exit. But someone, I know a lot of people who were thinking that we'll exit our entire equity portfolio at 15,000. They just kept waiting for 15,000. Market just kept rising from 7,000, from 14,750. It just came back. Now, what do we do? Is the question. The theory is either it will go up to 15,000 back, or it might start their, kind of a reverse trajectory. All sorts of assumptions. I just know one thing, guys. In the long run, next 5 to 10 years, it's India's time, for sure. This is what I can just be very, very confident about. If you are a long-term player, and you guys would be what, around 2021, and the next decade is one of the most important for you guys, because you guys are going to start your careers. You guys are in a very good time, because you are as of now, you are knowing that what the technology has brought in so many changes. In 2005, when I started my engineering, since that time, a lot of people have been saying, okay, computer science is the future, right? But computer science has actually proven out to be a future finally. But I have changed my lines. Uh, the good thing with me is that, okay, I have studied algorithms and coding, so I can get back to that line again. But I think it's times when you guys who are into coding and all pick up this. Finance, as I said, is not rocket science. It's very easy. In next 10 years, there are so many disruptions might take place. So many new industries might form. India is way above the olden times when you only can do engineering. You only wanted to do engineering and doctor, and then the career spans were just like, sorry, and probably a commerce student, and the career lines were only limited. Now there are a lot of avenues, lot of opportunities available, and the kind of entrepreneurial spirit which we are seeing today is that a lot of you young guys want to do something for your own rather than joining a company. And that's also, I mean, I really admire people who have taken these calls very early in their life. So moving ahead, last year we saw that Nifty is the largest top 50 companies, as you guys would know, has just risen up crazily. But same thing we had not seen into the mid cap and the small caps. Now I'm not getting into the technical definitions of what mid cap and the small caps are. Probably you guys would be knowing. If not, then just Google it out after the session. But mid caps and the small caps were slow to catch up. But now in the last probably 1 month, what I have been seeing is that Nifty falls, but small caps and mid caps don't fall that much. So somewhere I have this feeling that 2021 is going to be the year of the mid caps and the small caps. And when I say mid caps and the small caps, generally you need to think like this. The Nifty large caps are generally comprising of the top companies, which mainly are into the IT sector and not the normal IT companies. It's obviously not normal, but normal is a wrong word, but I would say the IT companies which everybody hears about: Infosys, TCS, HCL, Wipro, Tech Mahindra, and all these top 5 companies. These might be the part of the top Nifty 50 or Nifty 100. Then there are a few companies like Reliance, HUL, ITC, and the banks like HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, Kotak and all. So probably I can say that in the top 50 or top 100 companies, there are few sectors and a few quality companies which are gaining which have the maximum, kind of weightage. But if you talk about company industries like water management, as I was speaking about, contract manufacturing, there are a few companies like Amber Enterprises who will manufacture your ACs. The ACs which you have in your house have brand like Voltas or LG or Carrier and all those things. But generally, who makes them? The manufacturer is a company called Amber. Similarly, for other white goods like washing machine and TVs and all, there's a company called Dixon. So they are contract manufacturers. Similarly, contract manufacturing is also prevalent into the pharma or the healthcare industry. I think these kind of companies are going to gain traction in 2021. Then there are building materials, right? If the infrastructure sector is going to get a push from the government, a boost from the government, then probably the industries like the tiles industries, the paint industries. Obviously, Asian Paints is the largest, but then you can look into plywood industry. These companies will never figure in the top 100 because they are not large enough. But probably because of these pushes from the government, these companies might do great. And these are just few of the handful of sectors which I spoke about, textile being another one. logistics or the warehousing being the other one. These sectors might do a little better than Nifty. The sectors which are into Nifty, the larger companies. It's just my estimation. I'm not giving. Obviously, I cannot be 100% sure, but this is what I am expecting. Now, these companies are into the small cap and the mid caps, so I'm expecting mid caps and the small caps to little outperform Nifty. And my expectations on Nifty is that probably Nifty will be a little kind of, it will not be rising in 2020, but it will stay here. It will just move 10-15% up and down from here, and will be just like the trajectory will be a little constant and moving up and down once every while. So I think here I would stop, and we are into the halfway through. And Priya, if I can expect some questions from you guys, I just want to announce one thing is that I don't know if some of you might be following me on LinkedIn, but I try to write almost every day a piece on the financial markets, stock markets on LinkedIn for you guys to learn. And lately, I have also started a Telegram group where I take questions personally and try to respond to each and every one of you. So in case you guys would want to be interested in joining the Telegram group and give any questions, participate in discussions, every second Saturday I am holding some sessions on learning about mutual funds, learning about IPOs, using my experience and all. So if I generally kind of put up there that okay, this is the next session. If you guys want to join, you can join. If you want to join that WhatsApp group, I'll be happy to share my the link with you. Probably I'll share with Priya or someone, and they can disseminate it to you on YouTube or wherever you are listening from. So that I'll do separately, Priya. Till then, why don't you start the questions, and I'll be happy to take it for the next half an hour.
Yeah, it seems, sir, the audience has already enjoyed what you have said, and also it has been a very, very insightful session. So we have a lot of questions coming in. Guys, we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. So we are filtering the questions as the first question had come. Can you explain futures and options, sir? A bit of insight if you would like to give on it.
Explain future and options. Okay, so see, future and options are completely different asset classes, which are called derivatives. And derivatives, why the name speaks everything. Derivatives because it is deriving its value from an underlying. Now that underlying, as you know, in the futures and options is basically either the stock, the one particular stock, or the index, which is your Nifty, Bank Nifty, and all those things, and the way probably the underlying moves. So if let's talk about Nifty. If Nifty is moving up, then you can either you invest into, you can't invest into Nifty or right. So what you can do is Nifty ETF or something, but let's not get there. You can buy a Nifty call option. There are two types of options. One is a call option, which will give you money when you are when you think that the price will go up. But derivatives also help you to make money when the prices are going down. Otherwise, you can just buy at lower price and sell it higher. But what if you are thinking that the market will go the other way? So then there is a mechanism called put options. So put options will give you money when the market is going down. If I start discussing on futures and options, I take classes on futures and options, and it takes me at least 4 hours to cover the basics, 3 to 4 hours. So probably I can take these questions. If you have anything particular on put options, call options, futures, time.
Yeah. So this question was basically not around our area, but we took it since we had it in our chats. So moving on to the next question, sir. How to see if increase in interest rates by Fed US as well as in RBI India, both the cases, will it be positive or negative for our markets?
Increase in the interest rates are imminent, and I think I don't know about when it will happen, but I don't see it languishing over there for long. There is not much room. Fed US anyways doesn't have any room. In India, at least RBI has some room, but I don't think so they will go there. Gradually in 2021, the interest rates will increase a bit. And when interest rates increases, after such a sharp rise in the markets, the first or probably the earliest indicators of market taking a halt and probably going down is when the interest rates started increasing. So So when that happens, it's not going to be positive for market. I would say it's going to be a little negative for the broader market per se. If you ask me for bank nifty particularly, let's take an impact on the rise in the for the banks. Uh, I don't even think so that banks will be positively impacted with the rise in the rates, because what happens is that okay, so they might give loans at a higher rate. Let's say if today they are giving a home loan at 8%, probably they will recalibrate it to 9%. And but generally what happens is that they have brought down the savings rate, the FDs rate also down. They will have to increase it. There can be some instances where there can be a considerable gap between, because obviously all the banks will first try to increase the rates at which they are giving out loans, and then only they will increase the deposit rates. So that point of time there might be a little bit of margin, but that's not something which will perennially exist, right? The gap has to close down. So overall, it's not going to be positive for banks.
Okay. Moving on to the next question, sir. Actually, this crypto has been a very hot topic in the recent days. So there is a question relating to that. What's your take on India's action against crypto?
So guys, here I would just, because this is being streamed on YouTube and other channels, so whatever I am speaking today is my own views. I just want to make a disclaimer, not of my employer's views, first of all. Secondly, there are few asset classes like Bitcoin and also where every day something or the other new is happening. So it's a little difficult to form views. But I'll talk about my personal views on the cryptocurrency. 2017 or 18, when the markets were doing, the crypto market was doing pretty well. Everybody was getting into investing into those, right? And then all of a sudden, the RBI came up with this regulation that no bank will be allowed to transact to help kind of exchange bitcoins or any other cryptocurrencies. And then the cryptocurrency market in India fell down. Over the last 5-6 months, because of the global prices as well, we are seeing the crypto has gone to around $40,000 level. And now finally, when everybody was starting to enjoy the run, Supreme Court again comes back and hits it. So I don't know. I mean, India, you can't expect to be a free market like without any regulations. You can run a cryptocurrency or a Bitcoin or something. And Bitcoin, for me, as of now, it has. The idea of creating a Bitcoin was what? That you can eliminate the regulatory bodies and can have a kind of a currency which can be transacted directly without any intermediary. But what is happening with the Bitcoin, to be honest? Bitcoin is just now another asset which has been just getting into the bubble. And what's the underlying? How can you value a Bitcoin? There are various other theories that, okay, the supply is so limited, demand is so high. So the thing will happen, it will keep on rising and rising. But this kind of rise is actually not very healthy. So it will have to, just like what happened with the GameStop stock last week. Probably there might be a little halt. So and what actually triggers the halt, or what actually triggers the fall, just like I talked about interest rates rising triggers the fall in the stock market. Probably the regulatory body's action will trigger the fall into these currencies. I think this news came out yesterday, if I am not wrong. So we are yet to see the impact in Indian markets tomorrow. Let's see. Tomorrow is a big day, anyways. I don't think so I will have time to look at Bitcoin. Tomorrow is the stock market day, equity markets day. So yeah.
We have seen in headlines this year that the global economy, the Indian economy, had not been in a very sound position this year. So there is a question which states that what is the reason for rise in markets despite the economy being not being in position for this year?
So I think I kind of touched upon this question when I was speaking. So basically, what happens, guys, is that when there is an immense liquidity, that liquidity, the extra cash and the extra time people had in hands. In US, you call them Robinhood investors. In India, I call them Zerodha investors. So a lot of people entered the stock markets, enters the future and option market. So people are, even in the audience, are asking what are derivatives. So there is always this curiosity, and a lot of people have come back to me asking, sir, please explain how to start my trading into the options. And I am like, boss, you do not even understand the basic underlying, and you want to jump into options, which are the highly risky thing. But I can tell them my kind of my experience that I don't get into options. But how many people are going to listen to me? right? So a lot of people who had time in hands, who had money in hand, they actually started investing, and the market just kept on going up and up and up. So this is basically, I was reading something, the history of stock markets. Liquidity is the biggest factor when the markets go up. Similar thing happened when after the crash of, I think, 2001 2002 technology bubble burst. It was again the similar kind of a thing that the US Fed started pumping in money, and then we know that the bull market went on from 2003 to 2007 or 2008 before the housing financial crisis happened, right? So these kind of things will happen. Liquidity is the biggest driver of the stock markets, and when the bubble bursts, then you know what happens, because the bubble of technology bubble, when that burst, markets went up, then housing crisis came. Since the housing crisis has come, then we haven't seen a full-fledged recession. People were saying that COVID might be the next reason for the recession, but has it been? I don't know, because markets are saying a different story altogether. This is not sustainable, according to me. It will have to correct, because ultimately the first principles have to be applied. That valuation obviously are the first principles. You just cannot keep pumping money and keep markets just rising and rising. It doesn't happen in perpetually. So again, same point. I don't see the market make sense to me at 14,700. But let's see where the budget will correct it till tomorrow, or if it corrects or not, or if it takes back to 15,000.
There's also a question regarding, sir, how prominent is the effect of FIIs on Indian markets, investments, or foreign investments? So
Yes, still, I don't like this dependency of our stock markets on FIIs, but unfortunately, that's a sad story. Whenever you see FIIs pumping in large amount of money, the market goes up, or you can say the other way around. Whenever the market goes up, you know that today, okay, FIIs would have put in a lot of money. In the last 5 days, or one day was a chutti, one day was Republic Day. So out of last 4 days in the last week, FIIs have actually been sellers, and when FIIs have been sellers, DIIs have actually been buyers, but market has gone down, right? So I just funnily say that FIIs are like momentum investors, momentum traders who will invest into the markets when markets are going up. DIIs are the value investors who will try to invest when the markets are going down. You choose what you want to be, right? Now, DIIs are so powerful that whenever they are buyers, the market is mostly going up, right? But DIIs actually make a lot of killing, because I read somewhere that LIC and the other insurance companies, mutual funds, bought heavily in the month of March in April when the markets were down, and they stopped buying, I think, June, July onwards, when the markets are crazily going up. So fill up your coffers when the market is at a lucrative price. I think Indian markets, Indian DII investors follow Warren Buffett principle a lot more than probably US foreign institutional investors.
Sir, there is another question regarding the GameStop frenzy. It has been in the news since a few days. It was in the news. So there is a question regarding that. Is a short squeeze practically possible in the Indian markets? What's your view on that?
There was a beautiful article by Nitin Kamat from Zerodha that short squeeze is actually not possible in India, honestly, because Indian market. So what is the major difference between a US market and Indian market is that US markets allow shorting a stock, and for the benefit of general audience, I'll just explain in a minute what does shorting mean if someone doesn't know. Basic principle in life is you buy and then you sell. Obviously, till you don't buy, how can you sell, right? That's the basic principle. But then stock markets give an opportunity to people to do the reverse transaction. You first sell. If you think that the market or any stock is going to go down, obviously you don't want to buy, right? Because you anticipate market going down. But they will give you an opportunity where you can first sell by borrowing some security from someone other. Just imagine that you borrowed it from someone else, and then later on when the prices fall, then you buy it back, because obviously you need to complete the transaction. If you have sold something, you have to buy it back to complete the transaction. So you sold at a higher and bought at a lower price. Your transaction is completed. When you bought back, you give those securities back to the person you borrowed it from. So this reverse kind of mechanism is in India only allowed intraday. So you have to close out your position. You have to buy it back by the close of the market hours by 3:30. right? So generally people can't short a stock and can sit on it for a month or a 2 or 3, just like, and this is possible in US. So this is the major, and then there are a few other laws from SEBI as well. So what happened with GameStop stock was that shorting was actually done till the extent that there were not so many stocks. Let's say a company has only 1 lakh stocks, outstanding stocks, right? But these guys shorted on 1,20,000 stocks somehow, taking leverage and all. So they actually shorted for more than the number of underlying stocks, which is not possible in India because the laws from our by our SEBI and all, they say that no one person is allowed to hold more than, I think it's what, 5% of the overall, or short more than 5% of the overall underlying stocks. It's basically called the open interest. I'm not getting into the technicals again. So there are, I think, 4 or 5 things which actually, if you read through them, read that, just Google out Nitin Kamat's from Zerodha's article, that there are 4 or 5 such policies that actually makes India short squeezing impossible in India. Not difficult, but mostly impossible. So we are not going to see a GameStop type of driven frenzy and then a crash and all, whatever happened in the US.
Okay, sir, there was a question. Actually, it's not a question, it is a suggestion that a person has asked. The books you would suggest to someone if he or she wants to read in depth about the stock market. So if you could suggest some books for the people who are listening.
Okay, that's a good question because I have taken all my gyan from CFA books, and then I generally read a lot on people's blogs and all. But few books which make it like it sounds compulsory for people interested into the stock markets to be read are basically Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor or Security Analysis, which have been the Bibles right from 1930s, 1940s. Or there can be some books written by Warren Buffett as well. But what has changed is that people generally say, because everybody's boss are like Warren Buffett and Benjamin Graham. But those were different, I would believe. Those were the days when value investing, because now what has happened is with the advent of actually, those guys used to read through the annual reports, make some notes on paper, and calculate the ratios using calculators. And then finally, it was a huge amount of work. So all those things used to work very well back then when you needed to search stocks. But right now, with the advent of technology, it's a game of minutes or seconds. So everybody can be a value investor, and this is why value investing is not working. Because once someone sees this opportunity that okay, this is a good value stock, everybody will jump onto that. So that value stock eventually becomes a growth stock, right? So I would suggest, if you want to start your career or start reading about finance, do start from Intelligent Investor from Benjamin Graham, but then move on to basically more advanced books. Other couple of books which I can suggest for beginners to read is, one book is called The Little Book That Beats the Market by Joel Greenblatt. This is a very thin book, like 150 pages, small book, and very good for beginners. And the other book in the Indian context is Coffee Can Investing by Saurabh Mukherjee. So these two books will give you a good idea about how to read about the companies, how to apply your frameworks in the stock markets to invest, basically.
So the last question for the day, and actually this question has popped up a number of times. In fact, I was willing to ask this question myself. How was your experience as an investment banker? We would love to know that. What was your personal experience as an investment banker?
Okay, great. One question which I receive, which I get a lot these days is, boss, you were an investment banker, and why did you just quit investment banking industry and went to wealth management industry? Because a lot of people you will find in India today will be those who would be into the wealth management industry and want to move into the investment banking. Because the kind of hype, the kind of lucrativeness which you hear about private equity, venture capital, investment banking divisions is huge. My journey, my 4.5 to 5 years in investment banking were awesome. And what happened, I'll just take you through my little bit about my career. I joined Deutsche Bank in 2014 May. and then I was actually kind of aligned with the Australian desk. So I visited Sydney as well for a good amount of time, for almost a year. So I was working from Sydney, and beautiful country. And then I was also getting a permanent relocation to Sydney, Deutsche Sydney. But I wanted to come back to India for several reasons, personal and professional. So somewhere in the middle of 2016, I came back to India and I joined the Indian team focusing on IPOs, focusing on other equity capital markets transactions, which you keep hearing, like rights issues, QIPs, block trades. 2017 was a bumper year in India for the IPOs. In fact, 2020 you saw a lot of IPOs coming in. That was nothing. 2017 was much better. 2020, it's just that because of immense liquidity, all the IPOs are opening up 100%. That doesn't mean that it's a great year for IPOs, but 2017 was a much better, and we had a lot of issues. 2018, by the time we came, the market started falling, and then unfortunately, Deutsche Bank also started shaking a little bit off. We had a change in the global CEO, and that was the trigger when I thought was it's good to move out of Deutsche. Otherwise, to be honest, had Deutsche been not in any problem, I would still have loved to be in that role, and wealth management would have never happened. Wealth management for me had been a kind of a passion since 2010, when I started writing my CFA level 1, because CFA is all about portfolio management. I wanted to learn a lot about all the investment asset classes. Had I been an investment banker and not reading much on the different asset classes, I wouldn't have been able to answer questions on cryptocurrencies and futures and options and all. But wealth management actually gives you a perspective to look into each and every asset class, because you have to read a lot. The questions which you guys are asking, I have been answering. Imagine if a same question is being asked by a client who has 100 crore rupees, and I would say no idea, sir. Then he would say, okay, I'll go to a different wealth manager, right? So it's a part of my job to know each and everything. And I am like a person, who likes to read a lot, who likes to know about each and everything, whatever is happening around the world. So I am quite happy that I have moved into wealth management. Investment banking, also one caveat is that it's beautiful. I mean, it's a great profession, it's a great job to be in, but it takes a toll on your health and mind. Initial 4 or 5 years, you need to spend a lot of working hours. I used to spend about 16 hours on an average in 2017, including the weekends. The entire week used to be 100 hours plus, mostly, and sometimes it can take a toll on your body, mind, health, relationships, etc., etc. If you can sustain that on a consistent basis, then you just keep moving up and up and up in investment banking, and one day become a managing director at the age of around 40 or even 35, and it becomes very lucrative there. So that is my experience of investment banking. I also added my experience of wealth management into this answer. So I think that could also help audience a little bit.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a very, very interesting and interactive session. The chat section suggests that the people have actually enjoyed the session. And it has not been like a boring finance session for the engineering students, because sometimes we don't have insights into the finance. So it was very, very well balanced for both the people who are getting into it and also who know a bit about it. So nobody was left out. Also, you gave some very interesting insights on the budget, that how should we look up to that, and you also mentioned some recent news. Also, pretty much all the topics were covered. Thanks for your patience, sir, for answering all the questions, which at this
Thanks,
moment.
Priya. Just a last word from me. See, basically, if you guys hear me in my various webinars and all, I am a person who believes more into practical aspects of the thing rather than studying theory, because theory at a time will become very boring, and until and unless you can apply your concepts into the practical world, it doesn't make much sense. So for my sessions, what I focus is on, like, cut the crap, come to the reality, come to the practical aspects of the thing, and then we can probably discuss further. So yeah, in that way, I hope people would have enjoyed, and look forward to more connection, more these kind of sessions in future if you have for me.
Yeah, sure, sir. It was a very wonderful session for all of us. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, sir, for joining. And this was the session on equity markets trends, hosted by Finance and Economy Club IIT Guwahati, and it was a part of FinFest, which is a collaborative idea of the top IITs of India coming together for the finance enthusiasts to learn things. And so the Finance and Economy Club IIT Guwahati thanks you, and the FinFest team thanks you, sir, for joining us for this session. And thank you guys for having interest in this session. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.